I used to think silence was safety. That if I kept my story tucked away, behind polished smiles and professional titles, I'd finally be free. But the past has a way of buzzing back into your life, sometimes literally. This morning, the vibration of my phone broke the quiet of my office. I'd been staring out the window at the skyline, sipping coffee that had long since gone lukewarm. The screen lit up with a name I hadn't seen in years: Mom. My first instinct was to let it ring. My silk blouse clung to my arms. I could feel the soft pull of fabric every time I shifted in my chair. I ran a finger along the edge of the mahogany desk I had worked years to afford. For a moment, I thought, if I ignore it, maybe I can keep pretending none of it happened. But I didn't ignore it. I couldn't. Because that name, Mom, dragged me back. Back to nights when my worth was measured in chores. Back to the day I found out my parents weren't asking me. They were demanding, give up your future, stay home, raise your sister's kids for free. And worst of all, the day I learned they had hidden $15,000 that was meant for me. I inhale, studying myself. Answer or not, the story is already rising, demanding to be told. I was 22 when the trap was set. Fresh out of college, diploma still warm in its frame, I had plans. I wanted to move to Chicago, maybe start in marketing or publishing, anything that would put my degree, my long nights of study, to use. I could almost feel the pulse of the city waiting for me. But when I walked into the kitchen that summer afternoon, my parents were already seated at the table, faces composed in that too calm way that meant trouble. My sister, Emily, sat there too, arms folded, eyes darting anywhere but me. Dad cleared his throat. We've talked it over. It makes the most sense for you to stay here, help out with Emily's kids. She's going through a lot and family comes first. I laughed at first, thinking it was a bad joke. You mean babysitting? While I what? Put my life on hold. Mom's eyes narrowed. Don't call it babysitting. It's being part of this family. You'll live here, no rent, food covered. Emily needs you. My stomach dropped. No rent. As if that was payment. As if my dreams were negotiable. I can't, I whispered. My voice shook. My hands twisted in my lap, nails digging crescents into my palms. I have interviews. I have a future. That's when Emily finally spoke, her voice sharp. You're being selfish. You don't even have a real job lined up. The kids need stability, not your big city fantasies. The lump in my throat was so heavy I thought I might choke. I turned to my parents, searching for even a flicker of understanding. Instead, I found cold resolve. And then the blow came. There's money, Mom said flatly. $15,000. Your grandfather set it aside for you for when you graduated. But it's gone now. We used it for things this family needed. The room tilted. My ears rang. $15,000, my safety net, my launch pad gone. Hidden from me. Spent without a word. That night, I sat on my bed staring at the ceiling, clutching the bracelet my grandmother had given me when she was alive. Don't let them clip your wings, she'd whispered once. You were meant to fly. The words burned in my chest. I realized then, if I stayed, I'd never leave. They didn't see me as a daughter with dreams, only as free labor, a convenient sacrifice. So I packed. Not much, just clothes, the bracelet, my degree, and enough determination to fit inside a single suitcase. I left while the house was still sleeping, the air thick with silence. It was the first time I'd ever chosen myself. The first few months away from home were brutal. I rented a studio apartment the size of a walk-in closet in a neighborhood where sirens were my nightly lullaby. The walls were so thin I could hear my neighbor's TV through the plaster, and the heat sputtered out half the time. I worked 3 jobs to cover rent, waitressing during the day, stocking shelves in the evening, and tutoring high school kids in English at night. There were mornings I showed up to interviews with bloodshot eyes and chipped nail polish, clutching a coffee like it was oxygen. Sometimes I caught my reflection in the subway windows and almost didn't recognize the tired, hollow-eyed girl staring back. But I kept going. The turning point came when I answered a Craigslist ad for a small publishing startup looking for part-time help. The owner, a sharp but kind woman named Valerie, interviewed me in a cramped office filled with stacks of manuscripts. She wore bright red glasses and had a way of looking straight through excuses. "You've got an eye for detail," she said after I proofread a test page in front of her. "Rough edges, but talent. I'll take a chance on you." It was the first time in months someone believed I had something to offer. Working for Valerie was like being thrown into the deep end. She expected perfection, but she also mentored me, teaching me about contracts, clients, deadlines, and the unforgiving world of publishing. I made mistakes, plenty of them. Once, I sent the wrong file to a client and cried in the bathroom for an hour. Valerie didn't fire me. She handed me tissues and said, "Get back out there. Failure means you're learning." With her guidance, I built skills, then confidence. I started taking on freelance editing jobs on the side. My first paycheck for independent work was only $200, but I stared at the check like it was a miracle. It wasn't the amount, it was proof I could stand on my own. Over the next few years, I climbed slowly. One small client led to another, then bigger ones. I saved every dollar I could, patching up my apartment with thrift store finds and teaching myself how to stretch a meal for 3 nights straight. I said no to nights out, no to luxuries, because I was building something bigger than comfort. Eventually, I was able to rent an office, a tiny one-room space with peeling paint, but it had a door with my name on it. I remember touching the brass letters, tracing them with my fingertips, tears stinging my eyes. On social media, though, I downplayed everything. A vague, working hard post here, a filtered photo of coffee and books there. If my family asked, I'd say, "I'm doing okay." Because if they knew I was rising, they'd try to drag me back, or worse, claim credit. Inside, though, I was no longer the girl begging for permission. I was building a life brick by brick, scar by scar. And every time exhaustion whispered I wasn't enough, I'd touch my grandmother's bracelet and remember, "You were meant to fly." It happened on a Thursday afternoon, years later. I had just wrapped a call with a new client, an author whose book launch would put my company in the spotlight, when the front desk buzzed. Miss Taylor." My assistant's voice crackled through the intercom, hesitant. "There's a group here asking for you. Says they're family." My chest tightened. I hadn't seen them in nearly 5 years. I almost told her to send them away. But something in me stilled. Maybe it was time. "Show them in," I said. My voice was calm, but my hands betrayed me, smoothing imaginary wrinkles on my navy blazer. The glass doors opened, and there they were. Mom, Dad, and Emily. For a moment, none of us spoke. They just stood in the lobby of my office suite, eyes darting over the polished hardwood floors, the framed covers of books I'd edited, the sweeping view of the city skyline through floor-to-ceiling windows. Emily's jaw slackened. This is yours." I let the silence linger, watching them take it all in. Their eyes landed on the custom bookshelves lined with awards, on the sleek mahogany desk that once felt like an impossible dream. Finally, I nodded. "Yes. All mine." Dad coughed into his fist, clearly uncomfortable. We didn't realize you were doing this well." "That's because you never asked," I replied softly, but the edge in my voice was unmistakable. Mom shifted uncomfortably. "We just assumed you'd come back. Help out." "Help out," I repeated, tasting the words. "You mean give up my future? Raise Emily's kids for free? Pretend $15,000 never existed?" Their faces drained of color. Emily's eyes darted to Mom and Dad, her expression somewhere between confusion and betrayal. "What money?" she demanded. I turned to her, my voice steady. "The 15 grand Grandpa set aside for me after college. They hid it. Spent it without telling me." The room went dead silent. Emily's lips parted, but no words came out. Dad shifted from foot to foot. Mom's eyes glistened, but it wasn't guilt, it was fear. "Do you know what that money represented to me?" I asked, my voice rising for the first time. "Not just cash. Freedom. A chance. And you took it because you thought I didn't deserve to build my own life. You wanted me trapped in your house, raising kids that weren't mine, living dreams that weren't mine." No one spoke. The only sound was the hum of the city outside, muffled by the glass. Finally, Emily whispered, "We thought you'd never make it on your own." I laughed then, bitter but brief. "That's the thing. You didn't think at all. You decided. And you were wrong." I walked slowly to the window, letting them take in the full view of the skyline stretching into forever. Every inch of this, every award, every client, every square foot of this office, I built from nothing. From waitressing and proofreading in the middle of the night. From rejection after rejection. From the fire you lit under me when you told me I wasn't enough. Their eyes followed me, wide and wordless. I turned back, squaring my shoulders. "And now, I don't need that money. I don't need your approval. I built a life that's mine without you." Emily finally sank into one of the leather chairs, speechless. Dad looked at the floor. Mom opened her mouth, closed it again, then whispered, "We didn't know it would turn out like this." "No," I said, my voice calm again. "You didn't think it would turn out at all." The silence that followed was thick, weighted with shame and disbelief. For the first time, they weren't looking at me as their daughter, the one they could control. They were looking at me as something else entirely, someone they never expected me to become. Someone they couldn't deny. I let the silence linger until it was almost unbearable. Then I walked back to my desk, resting my hands lightly on the edge. No yelling, no theatrics, just quiet control. "You came here today," I said, "expecting the same girl you tried to trap years ago. But she's gone. What you see now is the woman who replaced her." Mom's lips trembled. We wanted you close. We didn't mean." I raised a hand, and she fell quiet. "I'm not here to debate intentions. I'm here to set boundaries." Emily sat forward, eyes wet but defensive. "So, what? You're just cutting us off? After everything?" "No," my voice softened, but it didn't waver. "But if you want me in your lives, things have to change. Starting today." I turned to Emily first. "You're a mother. Those kids are your responsibility, not mine. If you want me involved, it will be as their aunt, not their unpaid nanny. You will provide for them, raise them, love them without expecting me to sacrifice my life for yours." She flinched, then nodded faintly, unable to meet my eyes. Next, I faced Dad. "You taught me the value of hard work, but you also taught me betrayal when you hid that money. If you want to be in my life now, honesty isn't optional, it's required. No more secrets. No more taking without asking. That's the price of my forgiveness." His shoulders slumped, guilt written across his face. Finally, I looked at Mom. She'd always been the quiet orchestrator, pulling strings with guilt and silence. "You told me family comes first, but what you meant was sacrifice comes first, my sacrifice. If you want me in this family, it has to be different. No more guilt trips. No more emotional manipulation. If you can't see me as your daughter with her own life, then we don't have a relationship." Her chin quivered. For once, she had no quick retort. I leaned back against the desk, letting the weight of my words settle. "These are my terms. If you can't meet them, then this is the last time we speak. I'm not begging. I'm not bending. I'm not 16 anymore." No one moved. They just sat there, absorbing the conditions they never expected to hear. Finally, Emily whispered, "You've changed." A small smile tugged at my lips. "No." I finally became who I was always meant to be. The power in the room had shifted completely. For the first time in my life, I wasn't the daughter being cornered, the sister being shamed, the girl being silenced. I was the one drawing the lines. And they could either step across them with respect or walk away. The days after our confrontation felt strangely quiet, like the air after a storm. I didn't know if they would accept my terms or walk away forever. For once, I didn't chase the answer. A week later, I received a handwritten note in the mail. The envelope was smudged, the handwriting uneven, but I recognized it instantly. It was Emily's. Inside was a simple apology. No excuses, no blame shifting. Just a promise. I will raise my kids. I will not put them on your shoulders. I read it twice, my throat tightening. Maybe she had finally heard me. A few days after that, Dad called. His voice was rough, like gravel dragged over concrete. I should have told you about the money. I should have trusted you to use it wisely. I'm sorry. It wasn't eloquent, but it was honest. And that mattered more than I expected. Even Mom changed in her own quiet way. When she finally reached out, she didn't lecture me about family duty. She just said, I didn't know how to let go. But I see now, you build a life worth being proud of. For the first time, her words didn't sting. Sitting alone in my office that evening, I touched the bracelet still circling my wrist. The silver had dulled with age, but the engraving was sharp as ever. Fly. My grandmother's voice echoed in my memory, warm and steady. Don't let them clip your wings. You were meant to fly. Tears blurred my vision, but they weren't the hot, angry tears of the past. These were different. Lighter. Healing. I looked out over the city skyline, lights flickering like stars scattered across the earth. I thought about the girl who once cried herself to sleep in a tiny apartment, the one who believed she'd been left with nothing. And I thought about the woman I had become, strong, independent, unafraid to demand respect. For years, I'd carried the weight of betrayal. But now I carried something else, freedom. And as I whispered my final truth, I knew it wasn't just for me. It was for every woman told her life was negotiable. They tried to trap me, I said softly, almost to myself. But I wasn't born to be caged. I was born to fly.